Hello, I'm Nate the Effin' Great, and what did I just watch? Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first installment of a new series called Movie Review Monday here on The Game Changer. I am your host, Nate the Effin' Great. I have not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 movies to talk about, as well as the Season 2 series of unfortunate events that happened on Netflix. So let's just not waste any time. Let's just dive bomb right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, the first movie on deck is Ready Player One. Honestly, I was very skeptical about this movie. I mean, I saw the poster and a lot of things kind of looking at it, thought to myself, well, this kind of looks like, like a Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back kind of poster feel. And then I thought I saw the DeLorean, so I'm like, okay, that actually piques my interest a little bit more. Then I get to the movie, and honestly, it is one of the better gaming movies that I would have expected. Now, of course, a lot of people are not exactly on board with it as much as I am. As a matter of fact, it's only reached about a 74% on the Rotten Tomatoes scale. It has now, as I'm recording, gotten $474.8 million on a $175 million budget. In all honesty, this is actually, again, one of the better gaming movies that I actually seen. A lot of the ones that we've seen in the past, Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, Doom, Assassin's Creed, not exactly as well liked. This was indeed one of the better ones. Now, of course, it is from the novel that was created by Ernest Cline, I should say. For some reason, I thought it was Ernest Cliche, which would have been weird. It was written by not only Ernest Cline, but by Zach Penn, and is filmed and directed and by Steven Spielberg. So that gives us a little bit of hope. Honestly, the storyline itself is actually really good. The film is set in the year 2045, when much of humanity, escaping the desolation of the real world, uses the virtual reality software known as Oasis to engage and work and play. So honestly, basically they're saying that we're going to be taken over by games in about, what is that going to be, about 26 years. Orphan teenager Wade Watts discovers clues to a hidden game within the program that promises the winner full ownership of the Oasis and joins several allies to try to complete the game before indentured players working for a larger company run by businessman Nolan Sorrento. Honestly, like I said, this is actually a really very well done movie in my honest opinion. A lot of people definitely give it praise because of its visuals, its brisk pacing, and Rylance's portrayal as Halliday. And some called the film's plot improvement over the book. And the main improvement that came out of this was the racing game. Now, a lot of people that don't know, basically throughout this movie, they talked a lot about finding this fortune that was created by Halliday, where he left his fortune to anybody who could find the 3 keys. And the keys, amazing. You basically had to go through a race to get to the end. You had to go through, this was actually really cool. They did a little bit of it, call back to The Shining, which was absolutely amazing. And then the final one was that they basically had to find the first ever Easter egg, which was absolutely amazing, that they tied everything in this together. I loved it. There are a lot of other people that didn't like it so much. In fact, I had two people comment earlier last week on what they wanted me to say on the podcast. So shout out goes to Joe Radzinski as well as Evan Wiesrock. Joe comments, Ready Player One had one of the best Easter eggs ever. My main man, ... Spawn. There was a lot of callbacks to that. Not just Spawn was involved in this, but you also got to see the Ninja Turtles, you got to see Halo, you got to see the Iron Giant. So many great things in this movie. It was basically a gamer's... And to me, I was one of the few guys who actually had the gumption to actually just blurt out during the movie, "Are you serious?" This is just... This just absolutely blew my mind. Now, for Evan, he comments, Ready Player One. Die hard of the book hate, but casual viewers will love it. I also felt like there were a lot of sake of cameos or references made even too many. Example being Tracer for Overwatch appears like 6 times in the film for no reason. Well, I mean, it could have also been like 6 different players. So, in all honesty, Evan, that's just the main thing that was going through my mind when I could see that. Other than the human world sections of the movie slow it down, and are 6.5 out of 10, I give it. So, I think that's always the issue, is that the human realms are just to the point where you are so into the whole gaming deal that you just don't care about the whole... You just don't care about the real world stuff. You're so inept in the game. You're just like, oh, what's going to happen now? What's going to happen now? That you really forget that the human world actually does have a bit of story to add to it. Now, obviously, during the movie, of course, Wade has to not only deal with the people that are in the game, but also the people that are in real life. They mentioned Nolan. Also, one of his favorite people, Artemis, also known by Samantha Cook, played by Olivia Cook, ironically enough. They basically develop an actual partnership and then an eventual relationship. And I think that near the end, that's where things really started to get a little bit kind of weird for me, but also where some of the parts where I just didn't like it. One example was the fact that they just had Nolan, the guy, he finally gets him. He has a gun out. He's just about to shoot. Wade, but as soon as he sees him holding like the Easter egg, he just lowers his guns and he just looks on in awe like an idiot. A lot of people were actually hoping for this, and I was hoping for this too. I wish he would have just, shot him. It could have been like in the arm, it could have been the leg, could have been the side, could have been something. Just don't be an idiot. Don't just stand there. Maybe if he just reveals his head, he could have been like, surprise, bang. Then it would have at least given him a real reason to, go to jail because he basically attempted murder. But other than that, I thought the weird part was the ending in which I guess Samantha and Wade, they're making out on the couch, and then Samantha just has like this look of like absolute fear on her, which I don't know if she was basically scared of what she was doing or what was going on or something like that. I don't know. It just is one of those things where I'm like, huh? Kind of left me with my head scratching a bit. But, nostalgia aside, I thought it was still a really good movie. I thought the graphics were great. I thought that every single callback that they made where they talked about some of the classic gaming was actually really good. It just worked out very well. One of the best movies of the year. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. It's very well done. Definitely worth watching. I even got a pre-copy of it when it comes out on Vudu. So this summer you can probably guess what I'm going to be watching, and it's going to be awesome. All right, so let's move on to the next movie, which is going to be Paul Christ. So this was written and directed by Andrew Hyatt. It also stars James Faulkner as St. Paul and Jim Caviezel, who portrayed Jesus, of course, in the 2004 film Passion of the Christ as Luke. The film tells the story of Paul, who was known as a ruthless persecutor of Christians, only to be converted to the faith. The plot focuses on his becoming a pivotal figure in the formation of the early church before being executed by Emperor Nero in Rome. So, my thoughts on this movie is that I like the fact that it was shorter than, obviously, Passion of the Christ was. It definitely was one of those movies where you don't have to worry about so many of these weird things, just happening. It's just one of those movies that it does do its job of running across its point. It runs about 106 minutes, roughly, on a budget of $5 million. In the box office, it got $17.4 million, so it definitely tripled what it was worth to begin with. The movie itself, I enjoyed it, but I felt like there were still some things that it kind of faltered with. Now, comparing to Passion of the Christ was definitely very brutal. It was very absolutely, vulgar. It was gory. It was one of those movies that a lot of people were just awestruck, but also in shock at how brutal they went. And, in all honesty, that's what I think made this movie so well done, was the fact that they were brutal and they were basically being honest on this is what Christians had to go through during that time. This is what they had to endure when they were persecuted, when they were, executed every single time. I didn't feel that with this movie, because a lot of times when they did show this movie and a lot of the execution scenes, they kind of either blocked away from it or they just made it seem like, oh, well, the rest, so you don't have to worry about it. The main one that I think stood out to me most was the stoning of Stephen. That was one I thought that they could have went a little more with, and I'll get into the reason why I think they could have gone a little further with that in just a bit when I talk about another movie, because, oh my gosh, it got brutal in that one too. But with Paul, Apostle of Christ, I just feel like if they would have actually brought out more of that, what's the word I'm looking for? More of that violence, and I'm not trying to say make every single Christian movie violent. No. Because that would be too much, and a lot of people would never go to see these movies again. I'm just saying, be a little more realistic with a lot of these movies, because you are basing it on the story of real things that actually happened. So, in all honesty, I thought it was still good. I understand why it got a 42% on Rotten Tomatoes, but also it's a very well done movie. But I think also the flashbacks were another thing that kind of stood out to me as to why it's like, it was okay, because with a lot of these flashbacks, they really didn't do any monologues. It was just, visions, and they just basically made it seem like, oh, well, what happened, so we don't need to show anything. It just was one of those things where it's like, you don't know that. There's so many people that don't know the true story behind Paul and who he was beforehand. I think if they would have went into a little more dialogue and actually done more with the story, then in all honesty, I think that it would have done better, in all honesty. I just think that if you bring in more facts, if you bring in more of the reality of what everybody went through back then you can at least have a better understanding of what it was like. So that's just my opinion. Do I think they have to be 100% reality? Not exactly, but they need to be more reality-based than not. That's just my opinion. So all in all honesty, I give this movie about 3 out of 5 stars. It was good. Like I said, just missing a couple of things, and I felt like the flashbacks were not exactly very hard-hitting. But, the performances by James Faulkner and, now I need to remember his name, Jim Caviezel were absolutely amazing. I thought they did an absolutely amazing job, and I am just everything was. And the weird thing was is that they never really showed. I'm trying to remember his name. They never showed Nero. That was the weird part. I don't know if that would have drove more to it, but I think that would have been one of those things that if they would have had a face to basically go behind where all this rage and all this fire was coming from, I think it would have probably made for a better movie. But again, like I said, it's not a bad movie. It's just some things were missing. That's just my honest opinion. Okay. Up next is the movie Blockers. Whoo, boy howdy. I had very low expectations for this movie. I really thought to myself that, oh great, it's another John Cena movie, and, hey, you got Ike Barinholtz in it. Okay, might give it a chance. Leslie Mann, who a lot of people have known, she's been in a lot of movies as of late. It's absolutely amazing. Movie basically talks about a trio of parents who try to stop their daughters from losing their virginities on prom night because they made a sex pact. And honestly, it's so funny how they do this. A lot of the funny parts where they listening to the conversations and John Cena is just playing like the clean parent. It's almost like he's trying to be like the PG John Cena, where he's just basically saying like, oh, maybe they're saying this, maybe they're saying this. Like the one where they have like the okay thing and the finger. He knows what that means in text, but for him it's like, you're okay. Dude, we all know. And everybody knows that they have that parent who is just trying to be absolutely clean. And it's just absolutely very well done. I loved it. And, you deal with, like I said, John Cena, who's basically the overprotecting, trying to be clean parent. You have Leslie Mann, whose character's more just, trying to do what's best for her daughter, but she's really doing something that's like best for herself. Kind of one of those things where she's trying to live vicariously through her daughter and not make the same mistakes, quote unquote. Ike Barinholtz plays a dad who is, a lot of people would describe him as a bit of a loser, but really does care for his daughter and just wants to be the cool dad, but he doesn't really get the respect of others until the very end. So honestly, it was one of those movies I thought, like I said, it was very funny. There was a lot of moments where they dealt with funny stuff that you would get from parents. Like Leslie's character would just act like she's still a baby, she's still young. Everything that with Ike Barinholtz's daughter, because her daughter's character named Sam is going through a phase where she is going to soon be coming out and revealing that she's gay, which I thought was another one of those things where I'm like, whoa, that's new. But they don't have that many movies where they have, teenagers deal with that, where they come out, where they, want to be themselves. And for John Cena's daughter, she just kind of wants to be the cool kid that, does these things where it's like, oh yeah, I've done that. It's funny, but it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, we know that one person in our lives that's just like, well, they're trying to be cool, but they're not really that cool. They're doing it like an uncool way, you know what I mean? Of course, the movie was basically supposed to be cock blockers, and they had a rooster in the title, and it was awesome. But the rooster icon was removed for advertising on broadcast television and cable networks that objected, with only the blockers text just basically being sold. So, of course, people are just going to be like, oh no, this means this. Like, we get it. It's a joke. Just calm down. Don't make this into a big deal. It's a rooster. Yes, we know some people might know what it means, but some people might not get the inside joke, and that's what makes it funny. So, in all honesty, like I said, this movie actually does very well. I am very amazed at how it handles with peer pressure, how it deals with friends trying to strengthen the bond of friendship between them all, peer pressure, and even really becoming who you want to be. And it was, like I said, very well done movie. With a budget of $21 million, it made double it at $52.9 million. As far as and actually it does really well in the box office. And rating wise, Rotten Tomatoes gave it an 82%. So it's actually very good. It's up to the 82%. Post Track gave it 76% positive score. It's one of those movies that it's different. It's got a lot of dark humor to it, but it's absolutely funny. They try to do things that are bizarre, and there's some moments where you're just kind of like, okay, this I did not need to see. But it's basically a teen sex comedy, but it just it's very progressive as comedies get. It's very well done. So yeah, like I said, in all honesty, it's very good. Another movie that I would give 4 out of 5 stars. Very funny. Probably one of the best funny movies that I've seen. Next to Game Night. I'm going to have to really probably decide before the year is over which one was better. But we're still in the midst of and 18, so there's probably going to be a lot more comedies that are probably going to blow these two out of the water. But right now, Game Night and Blockers are the two top ones that I've enjoyed. Oh boy. A Quiet Place, directed by John Krasinski, who stars in this movie along with his actual wife, Emily Blunt, which I just found out, like, I actually just found that out before I even recorded this, so I was kind of caught off guard by that. I'm like, oh wow, this is actually amazing. It also has it's produced by Michael Bay's company, Platinum Dunes, it's owned by Andrew Foreman. Bradley. That's nothing. Basically, this movie talks about a family who is basically battling against these aliens, but as the title says, a quiet place. They're trying to find a place where they can actually, remain silent. It is so amazing how they create these creatures that can only track down people through sound, and that is played so much throughout this movie. I absolutely loved it. And the performances by all of these characters are just very well done. Like I said, it stars Emily Blunt, John Krasinski, Krasinski, I should say, and a lot of people know him as Jim from The Office, which to me was like, oh wow, they're getting a comedian involved in this. This ought to be really good, and I was blown away at his performance. He did an absolutely amazing job. It also features Millicent Simmons, as well as Noah Jupe, Jupe. I hope that's how I'm saying it right. 95 minutes. This is actually it's another very well done movie, and it's, oh my gosh, you look at the box office right here. With a budget of $17 million, it already has brought $151.3 million. This is a movie that will definitely get your heart racing. The story in it is absolutely amazing. And here's something that I've really noticed with a lot of these movies is that you look at, I think, some of the top movies right now. One, of course, being Shape of Water, which won so many Oscar nominations this past year. This movie, A Quiet Place, also uses sign language very well. It's, oh my gosh, it's so well done. They obviously cannot, talk, so they actually have to use sign language to communicate with each other, and they soon find out that the weakness for these aliens is sonic waves. I'm thinking, is it or was it frequencies? Frequencies, there we go. And it's so very well done how they do this. And these creatures, they're large, they're fast, they're very, very creepy. This is one of those movies that I could compare with Don't Breathe and The Shallows, where there were some moments where I was like, oh crap, I jumped out of my seat. And as that says, it's happening in 2020, so it's like, well guys, 2 more years, we're basically gonna die. And the fact that they also utilize sign language, like I said, it's becoming so powerful of communication. And I think there's a lot of people that are even looking at this like, I want to know this. I want to know how to actually, do sign language. I myself want to actually learn sign language so that way I can actually communicate with others in case they can't, understand me, vocally. And I actually did have I think there's one person that keeps coming around every now and often when I work at the theater who communicates in sign language. Imagine how easy it would be for me to communicate with him if I did that too, so that way, I could show respect to him, and, he wouldn't have to feel like, I'm just, he wouldn't have this feeling like I'm looking at him like a crazy person, which I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I am not. It's just one of those things where it's like, I wish I could communicate that better to him. Because, like I said, there's a lot of people that are deaf and a lot of people that don't understand, so they have to, communicate via sign language. And also, this is the one thing that really stands out to me, is the fact that it has a Rotten Tomatoes holding approval rate of 95%. Let me repeat that again. 95%. And this is based on 239 reviews that everybody loves this movie. Everybody thinks it's absolutely amazing. Everybody is enjoying it. Everybody has a reason to enjoy it. It's just so well done. I think Evan even puts it very very well put. He says that it's beautifully shot, amazing sound editing, phenomenal acting, and really cool-looking monsters. I don't know if I would call them cool. I think I would actually call them frightening, especially the way that they listen in for movement. His only really negatives are nitpicky things and the rules on how the monsters operate. I don't have an issue with them, in all honesty. Like I said, they rely on sound. They rely on, and also how they, are defeated is through very high frequency volumes. Best film I've seen this year, differently recommended this one. I think when he said differently, I think he said definitely recommend this one. So I saved you, Evan. The movie itself, it is definitely recommended, and this is the first time I am giving this to any movie this year. 5 out of 5 stars. Absolutely amazing. And it is also directed by John, who stars in this one. This is very well done. It's one of those movies that I can look at and think to myself, so many comedy actors are now getting into this different genre, mainly horror, mainly thriller. It's just so amazing how they can transition. Jordan Peele got an Oscar for Best Original, Screenplay for his movie Get Out. I honestly will be surprised if A Quiet Place does not get an Oscar nomination. I am definitely vouching that Quiet Place does get an Oscar nomination. It does an absolutely amazing job. Like we said, the visual effects are amazing. The acting is very well done. And the story is easy to follow. You don't have to worry about major subploits or plot holes or anything like that. It's just very, very well done. And it's one of those moments where sign language does prove to be a powerful form of communication. That is the one thing I love out of this entire thing. There's a scene where John's character is with his daughter Reagan, and he sign language to her, "I love you, I always love you." And it's one of those pivotal moments where it seems like he doesn't say that to her enough, and she feels rejected, she feels worthless, but that one moment, you hear him say that, or sign language that, and it's one of those things that tugs on your heartstrings, especially when you know what happens, and that is, he dies. He saves his kids by making a sound and bringing the aliens over to him. Oh God, I might even get choked up talking about that. It's very well done. Emily Blunt and John are just absolutely amazing. I want to see them in more movies together, and I'm hoping we get a chance to. But all right, I've done enough riffing, and I've done enough talking about that. So, the final movie that I will be talking about here is the movie Rampage, which stars, of course, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. But it also features a lot of things. How do I describe this movie without giving away too much? Okay, so imagine King Kong, but of course he's albino. Then put in a couple of genetic monsters, as well as The Rock and Negan. God, the most nostalgic movies that you will ever see all year. It was absolutely amazing. It's loosely based on the video game series of the same name, of course, by Midway Games, so of course it's known as Rampage. Who knew? And again, it just deals with a lot of, a connection between, I guess you could say, brother and brother. That, George. This is basically, I could also describe it as this is basically Curious George going absolutely apeshit, and the guy in the yellow hat is The Rock. That's how you could describe this movie without giving away too much. It is so very well done. A lot of people have given it kind of mixed reviews. They put Rock's and Morgan's, Jeffrey D. Morgan's performances and the visual effects there, and they say the writing and the faithfulness to the source were meh, which I guess I can understand that. Again, I don't want to give away too much, but I felt like The Rock's character arc was a little bit faulty. Some of the genetic stuff is not exactly spot on. I'll at least spoil this. Basically, the gator and the wolf, they get extra powers, and all George gets is that he's bigger and he's stronger. That's mainly my only issue with that. But like I said, in all honesty, it's a well-enjoyed movie with a box office budget of $120 million. It got quite a bit. It's at a box office deal of $148.6 million, so it's definitely going to compensate for it. Do I think it's going to be one of those movies that a lot of people are going to enjoy? Not exactly. But I think it's one of those things that, well, maybe I shouldn't say that. I think people are going to enjoy it, but I think as soon as the nostalgia wears off, that's where you're kind of starting to look at the, it's not one of those things where you look at it and it's going to be one of those things where you look at it, it's like, well, I can see the faults here and here and here. And it's got an approval rate on Rotten Tomatoes of 50%. So, I mean, in honesty, it's like, well, we got just, we're halfway through there. There is a rumor of a sequel that may be made. I guess I'll just read what I have here. It says, on April 14th interview, director Brad Peyton was asked in the rat in the beginning of the movie was based on Larry from the Atari Lynx port of the original game. Peyton responded, "We didn't name him Larry, but I'm going to use that if there is a sequel. I'm going to make the rat's name Larry." So if you're hoping for a sequel, well, I mean, that's where you're going to get the source from. I mean, it's one of those movies that you kind of watch and it's like, well, okay, I mean, if I get a sequel from it, it's not going to be bad. It's just one of those things where it's like, I mean, I'll watch it. I will watch it. It's just one of those movies where it's like, it's not like, it's not going to be within my top 5, but it's still very well done. Like I said, when you're in the sense of the movie, it's awesome. Once the nostalgia wears off, it's just kind of like, well, I guess this was kind of what it is. So, yeah, this movie, I think it was going to be a bit of an average movie, but it exceeded my expectations just a little bit. And I think, again, it goes with the Rock's and Dwayne Johnson as well as Jeffrey Dean Morgan's performances. So, yeah, it's going to be given I'm going to give it a 3.5 stars. It's one of those movies that I look at and I think to myself, okay. It was one of those movies that I'll enjoy it once, but watching it again is not really high on my priority list. So, okay, talk about the Netflix series, A Series of Unfortunate Events, of course, based by Lemony Snicket's. I already talked about season 1 last year, I believe it was actually, and it has been renewed for a third season in March. It was renewed in the third season in 2017. Okay, so they're still going on with it right now. So basically, let me put to you guys like this: they based season 2 on 5 through 9 of the novel series, the Austeri Academy, the Ersatz Elevator, the Vile Village, the Hostile Hospital, and the Carnivorous Carnival. So, what to really take away from this movie? Well, you basically do get the same of Neil Patrick Harris, him as Count Olaf, basically trying to kidnap the kids, or trying to kill them, trying to get their fortune, which a lot of people are definitely, not going to be against. But I think it's just one of those movies that I look at that and I think to myself, this is kind of interesting. We get introduced into the Quagmire triplets, or actually it's the twins. I think this was one of those things where it was kind of weird because it was the triplets because 2 of them survived, Duncan and Isadora. It's one of those series that you kind of expect. Well, you can expect that, of course, being Count Olaf, dressing up in attire, basically impersonating somebody and trying to find a way to, kill, but the Baudelaire kids, they get out of it. But they do introduce some new characters, such as Olivia Caliban, who is the librarian in the academy. Introduce Jacques Snicket, which is apparently the brother to Lemony Snicket. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, so there's a little bit of personal deals tied in with this movie. Okay, this is actually kind of cool. Yeah, when they go into the academy, they're of course basically forced to working out more and trying to fail classes, and in the end, doesn't work. In the elevator, they get into a penthouse where it seems like it's going to be nice, but then the wife of the main guy in the penthouse, turns on them and sides with Count Olaf. Then we go into a vile village where basically democracy is basically dead and stupidity is around. Hostile Hospital, we basically just see kind of another safe place, but also, I think in the hospital, if I'm not mistaken, I think that this was the one that I was kind of actually very, I was actually kind of very happy with, because when they introduced the guy Hal, he was, as soon as I thought, like, he looks kind of familiar. Is he somebody I should know? I looked it up. The actor who plays, oh man, I can't forget I can't remember the character's name, but I remember the nickname of Soul Man from Jumanji. He was the guy who worked in the shoe factory, and he was given the name Soul Man. I thought that was actually cool to see him involved. And then we get into the Carnivorous Carnival, where the fortune teller Madame Lulu is basically is actually Olivia in disguise, and she's working with Jacques. Well, she was working with Jacques, but now she's working with the agency to find out what Count Olaf is really thinking and everything like that. The thing that actually kind of throws me for a loop with this is the last two episodes. They actually try to have the Baudelaires actually try and dress up. In the first attempt in the Hostile Hospital, it doesn't actually work out as well. But in Carnivorous Carnival, it seems like they dress up as like Siamese twins, like they're attached on the hip, and it seems like, oh well, they're actually going to get away with it. But in the end, in the first attempt, Count Olaf, he obviously knows it's them. In the second one, it seems like he doesn't even know. He's just not even like at all thinking like, oh well, this might be the Baudelaires. They're like, oh no, they're a bunch of freaks, until the end, where he basically sends Klaus and Violet down a mountain, and they have Sunny captive. So that's how it ends, and honestly, it's very well done. So it's kind of what you would expect. Count Olaf gets in disguises, nobody recognizes him. I was at the point during the Vile Village where when Count Olaf had Jacques Snicket, dressed up as Count Olaf, or kind of like him, where he had the scar, he had the tattoo on his ankle and the unibrow, and they had what's his name? He had the banker there, where he basically just says, like, oh yeah, no, that's Count Olaf, all right, that's Count Olaf, all right. I'm like, you've seen Count Olaf at least in like 4 other different deals. You know what he looks like. That does not look like him. You're literally at the point where it's like, I want to strangle you. You are an idiot. It's how the story goes. It's a series of unfortunate events. It's never supposed to have, happy endings. There's like so many brief moments in here that obviously when you watch it, you think to yourself, well, how can all this horrible stuff, be happening to them? Now, of course, they also, every single one is like, if you care to watch, it's your funeral, but I would not suggest watching it. It's one of those things like, you're inviting us to watch it. You're basically saying, hey, here we go. The other thing that really kept through me for a loop was the, I'm trying to remember her name. Oh, okay, so the banker's name is Mr. Poe. Whatever. I'm trying to remember the name of what's her name? Esme. Oh, Esme. Okay. So the Esme character kind of confuses me a bit, because she has all this wealth, all this fame, all this fortune, and she goes with Count Olaf just because he was her acting coach. Because reasons. Okay, I guess, but I guess true love conquers all. It's one of those things where a lot of people are definitely going to compare it to the books and the novels, and they're going to be like, oh yeah, it's spot on, it's spot on. For me, I'm just kind of like, huh? I don't understand. But it, again, is a very, very well done series. So, honestly, the fact of the matter that this movie, compared to its 94% that it got for Season 1, Season 2 got a 100%. I think it is due to the fact that it got darker, it got more edgier, it got more... It was definitely different from what you would expect from the originals. So, props on you for that. As far as my grading goes, I give it about 4 stars out of 5. Like I said, it's one of those movies, it's one of those series that, gets confusing at times, but it's still an easy storyline to follow. I think that once they get into Season 3, it'll be a lot easier for people to understand. So, I'm actually looking forward to how it concludes. So, yeah. I'm looking forward to it. So this has been Movie Review Monday, of course, here for the Game Changer, guys. I have been Nate the Effing Great. You know where to find us on Twitter. You know how to give us a like on Facebook. Thank you so much for joining me here. Be sure to tune in this Thursday when myself and VicTori Belle, we will have another exciting episode for you guys because reasons. And yeah, be sure to also tune in on Friday Saturday, or it might be Friday. I can't remember what the schedule was now. I had the schedule posted up on the Facebook fan page, so go check it out. But later this week I'll have This Week in Wrestling, so that's going to wrap it up for me today. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining in, and comment down below what movies you would like for me to review, because as much as I love going to the ones in theaters, I also want to look at some movies that you guys definitely suggest, and I will definitely try to keep it within 5 movies. This was the one exception because I saw Rampage last night. So, like I said, name me some movies that you think that I should look at, or maybe even as a television series or a Netflix series, and I will give my honest opinion about that. Yeah, I'll give it to you guys straight. So, for that, this has been The Game Changer. I've been Nate the Effing Great, and I will talk to you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye!